make an envelope junk journal. I use these to take notes on various books that I'm reading. Right now I'm reading a lot of philosophical and historical books, so I don't want to read them twice. Anyway, so you stick the flaps down inside each other, and this glue stick is actually no good, but I end up going back with just regular Elmer's glue to fix it, but it holds for right now. Then I glue on the other tab from the third envelope. This makes a nice three-part booklet, and I get these envelopes just from junk mail that comes, and I just hold off on them, and then I coffee dye them so that they look kind of old, and clip them so that the glue dries real nice. So here I'm measuring out how wide my sheets of paper need to be in order to fit inside the envelope. I want to make a nice fold over so that it fits inside but doesn't overhang. So I merely marked it, and then I use a ruler to kind of help fold stuff, because I don't do anything really straight. I try, but somehow folding always ends up being off. Oh, and I got this little cutter at a garage sale for like 10 cents. So wonderful. I've used it numerous times, and it's really just made things so much easier. Now I do keep that last sheet of paper, because it turns out to be about 1/3 of a sheet of paper, and I used that. We just kind of glued all of them together and made another little booklet out of that. So I got multiple booklets out of this. I didn't waste any paper. I ended up using about 4 or 6 sheets of paper in each little booklet. That kept it fairly thin and not too thick. Some of my books, obviously, I needed more sheets because I was going to do more notes. Some books are kind of small, so I don't need as many sheets, and I want to keep the book or the junk journal fairly thin so it can fit inside the book. And that way it serves as both a bookmark and a journal for studying. Anyway, so then I nest all the pieces together, kind of tap them down, and then figure out where the edge is, and I kind of end up using the X-Acto knife to kind of make all the pages be the same, because once they're nested inside they kind of stick out some. Here I'm just kind of guesstimating fairly even spacing of where I want to do my sewing or my holes on the paper. Now this one I did 5 holes. You can do 3 holes, you can do more holes depending on how thick you want it to be. And then my footage, it turned out died and I didn't get that particular one done, so I made another set. This one I only do 3 holes with, but you can see how in a little bit ago what the 5 holes, you just basically start in the center, and I like to push real hard with my owl just to make sure that I get through all the pages and the envelope below. And you just try and keep things all nice and tight together. Now I generally use upholstery thread, and I double it just because I like to. I think it makes it a little bit sturdier. But you definitely can use just regular thread, and you can use just a single thread versus doubling it. So you come up through the center and come back out from one of the side holes, and then you go back through the center and up to the other hole, and you just make sure that everything's tightening down now well. And then you're going to go back through the center hole for the 3rd time. And when you get out there, then you're going to do a nice little knot there. Hold on, get this. Yeah, so you knot it through just so that when you pull it tight, you got another knot on the bottom. I like to make these really sturdy because, well, I'm picky like that. I can't help myself. Anyway, I double thread my knot on the inside, and that gives me an extra tight knot, and then I do one more knot just because I'm extra picky, even though this is junk journal and it really doesn't have to be that particular, but I still do it. But that gives you a nice tight knot in there, and so then you have your nice little notebook on the inside of your envelopes. And then we come to the fun part, decorating. Now I'm using some of my sketchbooks artwork, just because sometimes there's something in there that I'm like, oh, that turned out really great, so I want to use that. And I'm just kind of tossing out stuff around to figure out what exactly I want on this. Now, this particular junk journal is going to be used for Michael Malice's various books. So his book on the far right, the Anarchist's Handbook, and also for Dear Reader, which is about North Korea. So I'm hoping to get all three of those into this journal, but I'm not sure. It depends on how many notes I got to take. So since he often talks about taking the red pill and that you only take one, you don't take them all. But anyway, so I thought this sketch I had done was appropriate for this particular set of notes. And Michael Malice is really into ocean life, and so I had this picture of these tiny little octopuses, and they're so cute, and so I thought that kind of would make a nice theme of the sea creatures and just fascination with the dark and the light. So I glued that down on the inside, again using that particular glue stick, and realizing that was a bad choice. It's not going to stay, so I ended up having to change that, but it does work for now. And that gives me a nice little envelope. And then it's a really good idea to just kind of lay stuff down and kind of place things and get an idea of how it looks before you actually glue it down. And so I was working with a color scheme of red, blue, and gold. So I had a couple different ribbons to try out. So I ended up using this ribbon that kind of looks a little bit like the really soft coral, the fans that you see in the ocean. I thought I'd give it a really nice look and a punch of color where I wanted it. So I started putting that on and just kind of lining stuff up. I had wanted to use that butterfly, but I ended up not using it. I didn't find a real good place for it. But you know, when you're working on something like this, just simply get out a bunch of different ephemera and different pieces of ribbon and pictures and whatnot that are in the color scheme that you want to use, and then work from there. And that way you kind of already have stuff laying out that you can try layering and moving around. I'm still kind of new to junk journaling. I tried doing it with some books, but I hate cutting up books. So do any of you use junk journaling? I love the beauty of the junk journals that I see, where they're just making so many beautiful pictures and collaging and everything else like that. It's wonderful, but I don't see the utility of these books or these envelopes where it's like every available space is covered by some picture or something. I don't know how you're meant to really use that, because I don't like writing on top of pictures generally. So I made mine to be with blank inside so that I can just do my notes on it. I prefer to use blank paper or graph paper to work on, because then I can do things like keep track of timelines or draw out different concepts, especially when you're dealing with more of a philosophical concept. Sometimes a picture does a lot more for me than words do for actually understanding what's going on, and I'm really capturing my thinking process on this. I don't generally just copy whole paragraphs. I will copy some quotes here and there, or some concepts or definitions that I'm new to, but I generally try and really read it and then think about it, and then start asking myself questions and take the ideas and kind of just toss them around until I really understand them, or have questions moving forward onto the next subject of whether I agree or disagree with the author. So here's the final product. I skipped some steps on the video because I worked on it when I didn't have things running. but I wanted to give you an idea of, so the 3 envelopes I used, Old Thesaurus and dictionary, because there's lots of these. I don't feel bad cutting those up. We have a quote. Now in here we have the book that's already attached in. I started taking some notes. I also have a section for reference books, and then I can write down quotes and make little bookmarks and keep those in here to use in other books. I like having just random empty sheets just to fill in. I have another book here, which I used a coffee filter at the front of it to just give it some difference, make it a little different, odd. And then in here I have like people I want to look up, specific things that I want to look into, and I have extra cards just for either bookmarks or to cross-reference with other books. For example, there's a whole chapter in The New Right that talks about controlling language in order to control people's minds, and that's the main thesis of Michael Nose's book, Speechless: Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. So I want to make sure that I have a card in both books that reference each other and what specifically I want to reference from one book to the other. And that way, when I'm like, oh, well, there's this idea that goes in this book, well, I pull out that book and then flip through it, and I'm like, oh, I can pull up this information in this book over here, and that will help me a lot. Because my memory is not great, and I just need all the help I can get. Use all the brains I have and all the brains I can borrow. So, and these are just sheets of watercolor paper that I added some abstractness to it. So that's what it looks like. So hopefully that'll be good for all 3. I have 3 of his books right now. I don't have the next one, obviously, because the White Pill's not out yet. But I think I can get 3 books in here. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. Anyway. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this inspired you and gives you ideas for your own junk journal or ways to take notes on your own favorite books. If you have ideas, please leave them down below. Please remember to like, subscribe, and remember you are not alone and you are loved. Bye.